Streaming. How's everyone doing this morning? On this Tuesday in Rochester, we're supposed to have a little storm this afternoon. I don't mind. Everything is looking green and pretty. Get out there if you can. Just a little heaviness over the city. We had another um, shooting, and a young man lost his life. So I'm going to continue to pray for blessings over this city. You may not be a person of faith, but and that's not necessary that you are to wish that this city can um, grow in a positive direction in a way that nurtures our children. So today, and shout out to Shirley Henry, send an email. How is everybody? You are able to send me emails live while I'm working on this lesson. If you, and any other lessons that you participate in classroom, if you have immediate questions or concerns, send us that message. We'll see it in the live chat today. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We have Lauren with us. Look at that pretty room.
Thank you.
How's school going?
It's finals week, so it's crazy this week, but we're almost done.
I know I have someone experiencing the same at home, and she
Mm-hmm.
spilled coffee on her laptop.
Oh,
We
that's
had a
so
little crisis.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're moving along, and it's gonna be over in a minute.
Right.
And then you can live like a normal person for a little while.
Just a little bit, and then back to it.
That's it. So today we are talking about finite and infinite verbs, and so that we have that our clauses are all in line when we get ready to write. So all of this is grammar, and it's really review for me. So that's good. I'm learning along with everyone else. So let's start on our page. I'm going to share. Jump in where you feel. Got it? Okay.
I'm going to do some review myself.
Yes, it really truly is. So can you see the screen? All righty. So we're going to start before we work on our clauses to get even more basic and to start with our finite verbs. And that's simply a verb that shows agreement with a subject. And it says here and is marked for tense, but everything is in line. So if I were to use these examples, finite forms of the verb love, when I'm speaking in the present tense, I love parades. If I'm referring to you, Lauren, I would say she loves parades. And then if I'm talking about something that occurred in the past, Pop loved parades. So in English grammar, a finite verb is a form of a verb that shows agreement with a subject and is marked with tense. Non-finite verbs are not marked for tense and do not show agreement with the subject, and they can also look like nouns. Talk about that later. But this is an important point here. If there's just one verb in a sentence, that verb is finite. I'm going to highlight that. Put another way, a finite verb can stand by itself in a sentence, and I'm going to show you an example of that. So finite verbs are sometimes called main verbs because it can stand alone, and a finite clause is a word group that contains a finite verb as its central or main element. The reason that finite verbs are so important is their unique ability to act as the sentence root. They can be the only verb in the sentence, whereas all the others have to depend on some other word. So finite verbs really have to stand out. And again, we're going to give you some examples.
The screen disappeared.
It did?
It says video from Melody Hudson. Oh, now it's back. Okay.
Okay, that's our
Oh,
internet.
no, now it doesn't. Video
Uh-oh.
from Melody Hudson has been turned off to save bandwidth. It keeps coming and reappearing, so
Oh, that's great. That's fabulous.
I
Is
see
it
it
there
now.
now?
Yeah.
Talk faster. So the main difference between finite verbs and non-finite verbs is that the former can act as the root of an independent clause or a full sentence, while the latter cannot. So let's take a look here. In this sentence, the man runs to the store to get a gallon of milk. So if I wanted to, I could put a period right here and say the man runs to the store. So that finite verb can make a complete sentence by itself. Um, to get a gallon of milk cannot. So that's the difference. So runs is a finite verb. It agrees with the subject, the man. What does the man do? The man runs. And it also tells us the tense. He is doing this right now. And get is a non finite verb because it doesn't agree with the subject. The subject is the man, or mark the tense. It doesn't tell us, we could say he ran to the store to get a gallon of milk. So it is an infinitive, non finite, and it depends on the verb runs. By simplifying this sentence, we can say that runs has the ability to act as the root of an independent clause. The man runs where? To the store. The man runs to the store. See there? So that can stand alone by itself. Why did I not understand this 100 years ago? It's making so much sense now. So non finite verbs take three different forms. And we'll dig more into the names later, but they're called infinitives, participles, or gerunds. So the infinitive form of the verb, such as to get, is also known as the base form and is often introduced by main verb in the verb to. So he wanted, what did he want? To find a solution. So our main verb is find. And we're talking about this. He wanted to find a solution. Um, so we have to. He wanted, and then we also have to find, right? He wanted a solution, could stand alone, but to find a solution cannot. So here's our infinitive form, and here's our wait a minute, finite and non-finite. Okay. So then we have a participle when we are talking about something that is happening in the future. He is looking for a solution. What is he doing? He is looking. He is looking. And then finally, we have a gerund when the verb is treated as an object or subject, like in this sentence. What is the verb? Looking. The verb is looking. And who is looking? It's something he enjoys. Looking for solutions is something he enjoys. What does he enjoy? Looking for solutions. So here's an example of a finite verb. The finite verbs are all in bold, and these are from movies. We rob banks. What do? We rob. We rob banks, and that's from Bonnie and Clyde. I don't know why they thought that was cute, but this is from Silence of the Lambs. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. What did I do? I ate. That is the verb. And that was Hannibal Lecter, if you've never seen that movie. And then this is from Psycho. You've never seen Silence of the Lambs?
No, my friend and I were starting it, and then she was like, it's too disturbing for me, so we stopped.
Oh, it's a very disturbing movie. That's the truth. He acted his booty off there. And this is from Psycho. This tells me something about this author. A boy's best friend is his mother. There's our verb, is. And this is from With Nail and I. Don't know this movie. We want the finest wines available to humanity. And what do? We want them here, and we want them now. That is our verb, we. And here is another one. You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow. So here are verbs. You know, okay. Don't you? Steve, you just put, what do? You put your lips together and blow. Now I have a question on this one. Don't you? Is that a verb?
I mean, if you take it apart, you have do not. Then you think of like
Okay.
how it's like to
Yes. Do
do,
not. Yes.
you
Okay.
don't do
Right.
instead of doing. I don't know.
And that do not, do
Do
not.
not. I have no
Is
clue.
that an action word? I'm a little confused by that
Do
one.
not. You don't
Do
you?
not you stick, do
Do
you
not.
not stick, do you not? Do
Do
you not?
not.
You know how to whistle, do you not?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then the last one is get busy living or get busy dying. So what are we doing? We're getting busy, right? Those are a little confusing to me. So then we have a way to identify finite verbs. The author describes 5 simple ways to identify finite verbs. Most of them can take an ed or a d at the end to indicate time in the past. Now this makes sense. Cough, coughed. Celebrate, celebrated. And 100 or so of those finite verbs don't have those endings. But if you see that it can take an ed or a d at the end, that can tell you that it's an infinite verb. Nearly all finite verbs can have an s at the end to indicate the present when the subject of the verb is in the third person, which is, she, he, they. So we would go from cough to he coughs, celebrate, she celebrates. Except when you have words like can and must, you're not going to say cans or musts. You would not put the s there. Then we have the dog races, and this can refer to the sport of dog racing or a fast moving dog. Okay, so there you can see an exception. Finite verbs are often groups of words that can include auxiliary words. That's what we saw earlier. An auxiliary word is a word that's attached to it, such as can, must, have, and be. Can be suffering. I must eat. Will have gone. I will have gone by that time. The party starts at 4, but I will have gone by that time. And then finite verbs usually follow their subjects. He coughs. The documents had compromised him. What is the subject in he coughs? He. So there's your finite verb of coughs. And then the documents, what about them? They had compromised him. And, excuse me, he is the subject. And then they will have gone. So they follow will have, had compromised. And then 5, they surround their subjects when some form of a question is asked. Is he coughing? Did they celebrate? Let's take a look at some examples that I have and see if we can make this make sense. So we're going to look for the finite verbs. And finite verbs change their forms when there is a change in the number or person of the subject. And they also have different forms in different tenses. Non-finite verbs do not change their form when the person changes. And we looked at infinitives, gerunds, and participles. Let's see if we can identify some of them. The first one, my little brother wants to be an actor. So
I
what
would say finite because for the non-finite ones, the word changes based on like the people, and I was thinking like if I said I want versus he wants.
Right, and they want.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree with you. Let's see. Let's look at number 2. Oh, We are correct. Now, she worked hard to pass the test.
Non-finite?
I agree because it doesn't have anything to do with the
Like,
person
yeah.
or the tense. So I agree with that. Yay, we are doing this. Okay, number 3. I couldn't solve the problem. So we're looking at couldn't solve.
Non-finite, I say.
I could not solve the
Because we
problem.
changed the,
Mm-hmm.
like, we, he, we all
Mm-hmm.
couldn't solve it.
Right. And does it tell us, it doesn't tell us, well, I could not. Does it tell us the tense? Was this the past or is it the present? I could
True.
not solve it. I agree that it's not. Oh, okay, let's look at it. I could not solve. I couldn't solve. Couldn't. What about me? I couldn't solve the problem. I
Oh.
think.
And I felt like it was a lot of.
Maybe it's saying, like, I couldn't solve the problem, but I can now. Like, I couldn't. Like,
Mm-hmm.
past, I couldn't.
What about me? Right. I couldn't. I
Right.
could not. Yeah. To err is human, which means to make a mistake. To err.
Non-finite?
Yeah. Do we have a subject?
Human. Or not really.
Oh, yeah. So that was right. We don't have a subject there. Yes. Okay. Your duty is to cross the river without getting noticed. We've got 2 verbs in here.
To cross, non-finite.
I think non-finite too, because the first one is your duty is, right? This is a verb, a thing that you must do. Your duty is. And then we have to cross the river, which doesn't address the subject or the time. Yep. Okay. And the doctor is attending to the injured people.
Finite, because you have a subject, the doctor.
Yep. And he is, we're talking about right now.
Mhm.
What is he doing right now? He's attending to the injured people. Now here again, we have only one verb. That's our clue. We also have a subject.
You showed your hand.
Finite.
Finite. Yeah. The students were asked to submit their assignments by Friday, but we're looking at to submit.
Non-finite.
Non-finite. And remember, subject is the students, and what about them? They were asked. So it is non-finite because we're talking about the part here. Very good. The teacher encouraged the students to work hard.
Finite.
Finite. Now, if we were talking about to work hard, that would be non-finite. Okay. Now this, the dog wagged its tail to show its happiness. And we're talking about what the dog did.
Finite.
Finite. Because we could just say the dog wagged its tail, and that would be finite. So it's a little tricky for me. How did you feel about it, Lauren?
Also tricky because it's like we use these words every day and we don't really think this deep into them, but once you like
Yes.
get the hang of it, you understand it.
And I think most times in speech we use it correctly, but you're right. Well, when we have to analyze it, it makes it a little trickier. So I think we're gonna maybe have another lesson of this, and before we, we will look a little closer at non-finite, and maybe it will, brighten this for us, illuminate a little bit. That's all we have for now. So we have writing part 2 at 11 o'clock. If you care to join us, Lauren, we'd love to see you.
Sounds good.
All right, take care.
Bye.